Hey, Phil.
Hey, Senda.
You want to talk about pacing clues in a mystery?
If I answer that question, will it be too early in the show?
Let's cue some music.
And welcome to Panda's Talking Games. I'm one of your hosts, Phil.
And I am your other host, Senda. And for tonight's topic, GM Gerrymander asked us on Twitter, a simple topic: how, as a GM, do you properly write and run good mystery adventures? I never seem to be able to get the clues and pacing down pat. Either they never figure it out or they figure it out in the first hour.
Yeah, so this question, Jerry, may be simple, but mysteries are actually one of the hardest types of adventures to run. Mysteries require a number of things to go right in order for them to be satisfying, and just a few things to go wrong to make them fall flat. So we're going to be sharing our best tips on how to plan the clues for a mystery and what to do when things start to change in your game.
Yep. But first, definition Panda. Before we jump into this topic, what do we need to know about mysteries and clues?
Yeah. Let me put down my bamboo and explain. So a mystery.
Or define, you could even say.
Yes. Let me define and allow me not to fall out of my chair.
Yes, please.
A mystery is a novel, play, movie, or RPG dealing with a puzzling crime, especially a murder. The key word here is puzzling, right? Which means to feel confused because they cannot understand or make sense of something, which is really the crux of the mystery. And what that means is that in our crime, one or more of the following things are either not clear or not known.
Yeah. So like, who committed the crime? How the crime was committed? What happened to the victim of the crime? Who is the victim? And why was the crime committed?
Yeah, so in many cases, we may know the answer to some of those questions, but not others. And the goal of the mystery is to uncover the things that we don't know, so in order to get a complete picture of what happened and why.
Yeah, which we do by finding clues.
Yeah.
Yay!
Clues are a piece of evidence or information used in the detection of a crime or solving of a mystery. Right? That's pretty obvious. Clues can either answer one of the questions or lead us to answering one of the questions, right? So it either directly answers the question or it takes us somewhere else where eventually we can answer the question. And if we accumulate enough clues and the right kind of clues, then we will have enough to solve the mystery. Cool. Okay. So now when it comes to running a mystery in an RPG, the challenge is pacing how the players acquire clues.
Yeah, this honestly, to me, feels like the hardest part, because if the clue reveals too much information, then the players could solve the mystery in fewer clues, which means that it might end significantly faster than you intended.
Correct. If the clues reveal too little information, the mystery becomes stymied and the players don't know how to proceed and they kind of spin their wheels and get frustrated.
Right. Or if the players fail to acquire a clue, then again, the mystery runs the risk of being stymied as well because they're missing a piece.
Yeah. If the clues are acquired too easily, the players are going to proceed to the conclusion quickly.
Right. Maybe more quickly than you intended.
Yep.
And if the clues are too hard to acquire, then again, it may take them a really long time to get to the end because it's difficult to find them.
Yeah. So, Jerry, this is actually like one of the hardest things to run. So many of these things can go wrong.
Yeah.
So what this all means, though, is that what a clue tells us and the rate at which we acquire clues in our game is going to be how we pace our mystery.
Right. Which brings us back to Jerry's actual question.
Right. So tonight, we're going to do things a little differently. Tonight, I'm going to talk first about how to plan clues out in a mystery because I do this a lot for different games, and I do lots of planning and prep of games.
Yes, and I'm going to talk about how to make fixes on the fly as you're playing the game when things inevitably change.
Because you are really good at improving.
It's true.
I'm not shabby at it either.
You're not.
But since one of us had to do the prep one.
Right, you're going to do the prep one always.
There we go.
If the choice is prep and not prep, you're going to talk prep.
Correct. Okay. All right, so let's get into it. When you create your mystery, you have to think carefully about how you lay out your clues. And you need to do this with an eye on how much info does a clue give. How easy are they to acquire, right? This is that same thing that we just talked about before about how much information and how fast you come by them. So when you are planning out your clues for prepping your game, here are my best tips. Number 1, write a what really happened here document. So part of your prep should be a page with however many paragraphs you need to write down what actually happened as for the mystery. It is a complete explanation. It is only for you, but it details everything that happened. So, the two people, they had an argument, and then there was a scuffle, and then they fought in the kitchen, and then one of them picked up a knife, stabbed the other one, then wrapped up the body in a,
tablecloth,
threw them in the back of their car, and took them out to the swamp, where eventually somebody who was hiking through the swamp found a partially decomposed body. Okay. You write all of that out in a document that you keep, because what that does for you is it gives you the complete timeline and image in your head of everything that happened. And we're going to talk about why that's important. You're going to actually talk about why that's important in a little bit, but it also is going to help you with your prep, because you need to then think about clues. Right. So based on what you wrote, you're going to figure out what the clues are, what people could find. Right. Maybe we're going to find a smear of blood on the floor that indicates somebody was dragged. And maybe we'll find a missing knife in the knife block that gives us a clue to what the murder weapon might be, et cetera, right? What we find on the partially decomposed body will eventually help us get back to who this person is. Okay. All right. So now, the trick about pacing your clues is that your early clues should only lead to more clues. So here's what I mean by that. Clues in early scenes never answer questions, right? Clues in early scenes only lead you to a place to find another clue. And my best example for this is if you watch the show Law & Order. The first half of the show, which is always the mystery part, if you look at their scene structure, every time they find a clue, they end the scene and start a scene at wherever the clue led them. And eventually enough times they get to a person, a suspect, or enough evidence to arrest somebody. But those early clues are always going to just take you to the next clue. And this is part of your pacing, right? Because if your early clue answers part of the question, well, then however easy it was for them to acquire it, they're that much closer to figuring out the mystery.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is they find a matchbook at the crime scene that leads them to a bar.
Yeah.
Or on that partially decomposed body that leads them to a place where somebody might be able to give them an identity or an address, right?
Yeah, exactly. So they the matchbook gets you to the bar, but it doesn't tell you who the person is, right?
No.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, so this leads to the next part, which is later clues answer questions.
Yeah.
So clues in later scenes start to answer the questions, or they provide bits of the explanation that you can then put together to answer some of these questions. And I will say there is a thing where GMs will be like, well, I don't want to be too obvious, so I'm going to make this clue really subtle, right? Don't do that. Don't do that. Players are confused enough playing mysteries. Have your later clues in the game be pretty obvious about what happened, because players are, for lack of a better analogy, are literally stumbling in the dark, feeling their way around this adventure, right? They don't really know what to do. They're kind of feeling things. And if you start limiting how much information they get, or you start being super subtle about information, it'll just confuse them more.
Right. You have to remember that the only parts of this world that the players can truly see with reliability are the words that you're saying. So not everything that's in your head in terms of the description is making it into their heads in the exact same way that you're envisioning it. So you just can't be obtuse.
Yeah. One of the games that solves a lot of this problem is Gumshoe, right?
Yeah.
And so when I say, like, don't be subtle, like, Gumshoe doesn't even make you roll for the main clue, right? Like, when you're just being on the scene with the correct skill present gets you the clue.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's ways to pay some of your skill points to get more information, like above and beyond. And then, like, this is how Gumshoe solves this problem, right? So Gumshoe solves it by not making this a problem in finding clues.
Right. Yeah. You have the clue. You get the clue.
Right.
Yeah.
But the same things apply. Early Gumshoe clues should lead you to later things, and then later clues should solve things.
Yeah.
All right. My last tip for this is that you should make a map of your mystery. And what I mean by that is, as you think of your mystery and you think of your clues and you refer to the what's happening document, you should make like a little map. Circles and lines are fine. That basically are like swamp, like body and swamp, goes back to trunk of car, which goes back to house, which, or goes to bar, which goes to house, like all of those things, right? Like, you should map those out and have connections. And then what you do is, for each of the sites, when you are planning your clues, you place your clues in. And what you don't want to have happen is you don't want anything to be linear, right? So, like, you don't want, like, you have to go from the swamp to the bar to the car to the house.
To house, yeah.
Right?
No.
So what you want to do is you want that to be one path. But then you also want in the swamp something that tells you something about the car, right? Mm-hmm. Something that tells you about the house, right? Like so that the players, when they pick up a handful of clues, can look and decide, like, do we pursue the tire tracks, the matchbook, or do we try to figure out the house key?
Right.
Like the house keys, right? Like, or, like, what should we do with these, right? Like, maybe the keychain has a couple of those shopper tags, house keys or whatever. And, like, if you look at the shopper tags, you can probably figure out what neighborhood this person, lives in, because, you keep the shopper tags for the places you go frequently, that kind of thing, right? So, but what you do is you lay those out and you make sure that each location connects to more than one. And that's super helpful because in doing that, whichever way the players go, which gives them feeling of autonomy, right? They don't feel like they're on a railroad, goes to someplace fruitful. And then towards the end of your mystery, you want all of your locations and clues to start pointing towards the finale, right?
Right.
Like,
well, I mean, the other thing that I'll say about that is that if they feel like they get stuck on one particular thing, it means that they have other things they can follow up on to try to clarify that part that they're stuck on, because, it happens, right?
Absolutely. And so the other part of this that's really important is that if they go down one path and they run out of clues, a dead end.
Yeah.
Right now, right. Like they've exhausted the clues on that branch. Right. They can be like, cool. Okay, so we found the house, but we should go back and work on the tire tracks.
Right. So now we can go back and follow up on another piece.
Yeah.
Yep.
So now I'm going to just make one recommendation. Even if you aren't playing the game, both Tales from the Loop and Things from the Flood, right, the two sister games, have a wonderful chapter on creating mysteries. I believe it's chapter 6, I think, in both books. I could be wrong, but it's the mysteries chapter. Both of them do an excellent job of explaining how to lay out these maps. And in fact, they even give you like some sample blank ones that you can just like you can just put your things in, right?
Yeah,
and just follow it. So I recommend that. And then I will recommend pretty much the mystery advice in any Gumshoe game.
Yeah.
Because Gumshoe is specifically designed to make mysteries not painful. Okay. That comprises all of my tips and recommendations on prepping a mystery.
Yeah.
But we actually have to run this thing. And as we know, no matter what we prep when we run, it never goes as we planned.
It always is going to change. Yeah. So I'm going to talk a bit about in-game adjustments to all the stuff that you planned out. So as the game progresses, of course, things change because players are going to do things that are unexpected. They always do. And that's honestly part of the fun of running a game, right? Because if you just wanted to tell this exact story and it needed to be perfect, you would write a book.
Yeah. Yes. Right? Exactly.
So, cool. So this is perfectly normal. And it just requires that you make some in-game adjustments to the mystery as you go. So your biggest asset in these situations is that you have that what really happened here document, right? Because then you have all the information as a GM for what happened, which means that you have like stuff and ideas and things in front of you to help you figure out how to make changes on the fly and how to do it without like bringing in random things that make no sense. It'll help you keep things logical so that the players can still, piece things together because they'll all still relate back to how this actually happened, which is what they're trying to find out, right?
Which, by the way, we should give a quick credit to Fear the Boot, who first came up with the what really happened. What really happened here? I forget if that's the exact name of their document, but I want to credit where credit's due. Fear the Boot was the first to teach me this concept. Anyway.
Well, and it's interesting because it's basically the slightly more intensive mystery version of like knowing the motivation of your bad guy in a game where it's a little bit more just protagonist versus antagonist, right? Because I need to know when the players do something, I have to be able to react to it, and I can only react to it if I understand what the opposition is. And to a certain extent, the opposition in a mystery is figuring out what happened, right?
So as a little sidebar, in my non-mystery games, I often write the what will they do document, which is if left unchecked.
Yeah, what's their plan?
Right. What will the character do? What will the NPC do if the players never intervene? And then this way, I always have a reference of when the players start messing with them, how to try to get them to their goal, or like I have some idea of what their motivation plan exactly. All the things you just said, yes, also apply.
Yeah.
Cool.
Anyway, so it's interesting. It's like a what really happened here document is a specific version of that for a mystery, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So here are some tips of how to fix common problems that will come up at your table when you're running a mystery, because clues, right? The first one is if they miss a clue at a site, which is entirely possible if you're not playing something like Gumshoe where they just get them, right? And you're like, oh no, I thought that would be easy for you to find. And then they don't roll high enough or whatever, right? You can move that clue somewhere else so that it can still be found in a still logical place, just not the first place.
So like the matchbook might have been missed at the murder scene, but it's you just move it to the suspect's office.
Yeah. So now they still have the link to go to the bar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're sitting there and you're like, oh my gosh, it's been 2 hours and I need to wrap this up in the next 2 hours. So these clues are coming too slow, right? Oh no. You can just make them easier to find. You can add more clues at a single site to increase the number found on one location and decrease the amount of travel between locations to find said clues.
Yeah. So in terms of making clues easier to find, right? So this is where you can just adjust difficulties, right? Like you just
tweak it.
Yeah, you just down the difficulties and make them easier, or you may even just give them, right?
Right.
So for instance, you find the matchbook for the bar and a business card to the local gym on the body.
Right. Cool. Okay. Now we have 2 leads instead of 1. But the other thing that can happen that we were talking about earlier is you might have clues coming in too fast, right? Like you're only an hour in and they're almost all the way done with the mystery. This is where you can actually sidetrack players with like an action or a drama scene. So this is where the chief calls you into his office and he says, you stop working on this case or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you go, oh no, why does he care?
Right. The mayor called and wants you off this case.
Exactly. I've actually played that game. It was pretty epic.
Yeah. You could also, while the players are out looking for clues, like you could just have an unrelated crime breakout, right? Like somebody robs the liquor store or somebody takes a shot at them.
Right.
But switching to another type of play will halt the mystery and allow the players to engage in some action or suspense or something like that, which is also actually good.
Yeah, from a beat standpoint.
From a beat standpoint, it's really good. And from a planning standpoint, it's good to have one or two of these kind of tucked away. Yeah. And then during the game, option whether you need to use them or not. So like you might have like, all right, cool. At about halfway through, I've got this action scene. And if the players are like crawling through the mystery, when the action scene comes up, you might be like, they're having enough problems. I'm just going to not use the scene and let it go. Or, if the players are getting like going really fast, then, you're like, cool, I'm totally going to leave the scene in, let them run right into this thing. And we'll have like a high speed chase or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, the last like mystery noir game I played, a body showed up at the doorstep of the police station.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it was related.
Listen, police officers are, if you're playing like law enforcement, trying to solve a mystery, police officers are always helping other police officers. So a high-speed chase breaks out, a hostage situation, a gunfight, like, with a bank robbery that went bad that has nothing to do with the players. They just happen to be near where the other officers are engaged. Like that automatically draws law enforcement players over to it.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. And of course, when in doubt, take a shot at them, right? Like, just fire a shot from a building. You got yourself about a half hour's worth of improv.
Yeah, they'll do stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
the one thing I didn't have on this list was whether your clue gave away too much or too little information. But if you stuck to the prep rules that we said in the beginning, where early clues only lead to more clues and later clues reveal stuff without being subtle, you should not have those problems.
Yeah.
Okay.
So do that.
Yes.
Make good clues. Yeah. So overall, the adjustments you're making, they shouldn't be too drastic, but they should be little nudges to keep things moving or to pace things out, right? So it shouldn't be like suddenly there are no clues when there were previously a million clues. And there shouldn't be like there were no clues, they couldn't find anything, and suddenly here are 10 clues in the same room.
Right. Like little nudges.
Little nudges. Just move it along in the direction it needs to go.
The thing about mysteries is mysteries have to feel like they're progressing, right? If mysteries don't feel like they're progressing, players then start to wonder what's wrong, right? So little nudges keep everything moving.
Yeah.
All right, cool. We're going to talk about one final thing about mysteries.
Yes.
We've talked about it in previous
before.
Yeah, we've talked about it in previous episodes, but no red herrings. Let me say it one more time while I clap my hands. No red herrings. Right? A red herring is a clue that is a dead end, or even worse than a dead end, it leads to a false conclusion about information.
Right. Which that works great in a novel or a movie, but it's terrible in a tabletop game. And it's because in a novel or movie, the story is going to come to the inevitable conclusion that it's going to come to, with or without that dead end or false information, right? The author can make that happen. But in a tabletop game, like your players are completely reliant on the information that you are giving them. You don't want to set them up to distrust the information you give them. You will then basically just shoot yourself in the foot.
Because once they start distrusting clues, they won't believe the ones they have. They won't believe the ones they're about to find. Like it becomes a mess. They can't even solve it anymore at that point. Listen, they're going to mess up roles. They're going to misinterpret things. Like, you don't need to put any extra confusion into this mystery. That's what players are for.
They're going to do it to themselves.
Exactly. Like, you just don't worry about that. Like, sometimes people are like, oh, but I'm going to be clever. And
don't be clever.
Right.
Don't be clever.
Don't be clever. Just, the players are going to make this confusing enough.
Yes.
Cool. All right. So now that we've made such a strong declarative statement, so much so I had to clap my hands.
I know. Do we need to put away the soapbox now?
Yes, we do.
We borrowed it from Misdirected Mark.
That's right. I'm going to bring it back tomorrow. I'll
take it back with you.
Yeah, I'll take it back with me and bring it to the Misdirected Mark show. Which also means it must be time to end the show. And before we do, Senda, tell us about another awesome show on the Misdirected Mark network.
Yeah, on Zhang Hu Hustle, you can train alongside fellow students Eric Farmer and Eli Kurtz. Eli and Eric make their kung fu stronger by watching wuxia films, then discussing how to apply their observations to game design. Cool. I watched one with them, and it made me cry.
Yeah, I want to watch. I haven't listened in a little while, so I feel bad because I really dig them. But I'm dying to know if they've done Bloodsport yet, because it's such a terrible movie, awesome movie, that I'm insanely curious about their take on Bloodsport as a martial arts movie, because it's fairly ridiculous. And yet I've seen it so many times. I am almost embarrassed to say you have never seen it. And so soon,
I have never seen it. Yeah.
One day I will, one day when I don't think that time is that valuable, I would never make you watch it in a time where I think like time is of the essence, because it's not worth that. It's not like I'm correcting something like Die Hard, right? Like Die Hard is an absolute necessity, right? It's a national treasure. Say, Senda, where can people reach us on the internet?
Well, you can find us on Twitter at Pandas Talk Games. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Pandas Talk Games. You can find us in the Misdirected Mark forums, where you may, depending on when you hear this, be able to continue to enter by way of signing up to get cool dice bag prizes. Or you can drop us an email, panda@misdirectedmark.com. And Phil, once they have found us in one of those places, what can they do with that information?
Just like GM Gerrymander, please submit your topics. Man, we love actually talking about the things that you find interesting. And to be honest, if we had to have come up with all our own topics for 176 episodes, I don't know if we'd be still doing it by now. But since you guys keep coming up with topics, we just keep coming up with things to chat about. So please keep that tradition going. Keep that candle of topics lit in the window, and please give us more topics for us to talk about.
It's like pandas nomming on bamboo.
Yes.
Just keep growing the bamboo. We will keep nomming the bamboo.
The topics are the bamboo. Okay. If you like what we do here elsewhere on the Misdirected Mark Network, you can support our Patreon campaign. You can go to patreon.com/MMP. Patrons get all sorts of things like the access to the bonus outtakes from the show, the after show from Misdirected Mark, our show notes, our Slack room, chill with us on our Minecraft server if you like a little block therapy. The occasional parody. There haven't been one in a little while, but, we're working on it.
We'll get there.
The occasional thing from Encoded Designs, like when we make a game, like often our backers get those things before anyone else, usually like a week before. That's kind of the rule I like, is like when we do a thing, I like to give it to the backers for a week before we give it to the world. Yeah,
but also they when you do that, they don't pay for it.
Yeah, I should say patrons for starters. Patrons, Kickstarter backers. So, in the hierarchy of things, Kickstarter backers get their stuff first. Patrons, then the world. Right, like that's.
Yeah, but also like Kickstarter backers get things for sure
because they backed things.
Right, and then Patreon backers get some things depending on what it is.
Yes,
usually not the same things as Kickstarter things.
Just for being awesome.
Right, like just to clarify,
correct.
So, the big thing that our Patreon backers got was the Turning Point Quick Start.
And they got it before the world did.
Yep.
Cool. The other thing we like to do is give shout outs to our patrons. We have 3 tonight, and because we're running low on time, I'm going to do them really quick. Jesse, Edmund, the Royal Doctor, JT Evans, fellow gnome, pointy hat, and John, just John.
Thanks, John.
And hey, Senda, what's the thing that people can do now that Mac Catalina has destroyed iTunes and reduced it into separate apps? What is the thing that people can do that is just as good as supporting the Patreon campaign?
You can leave us a rating or review on Apple Podcast or the podcatcher of your choice. Gosh, I hope it still works the same, because I haven't updated my computer yet. Yeah, but you can leave us a rating or review wherever you get your podcasts. We super duper appreciate them. And if you leave it somewhere that is not the U.S. Apple Podcast Store, we'd super duper love to hear where that is. Just drop us a note and let us know so we can go see it, because otherwise we don't always see it. Like, I just found one today on Podbean that I didn't know was there, and it made me super happy.
You didn't didn't even share it.
I did. I told you about it. I put the link in the Slack room.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Sorry.
Accusing me falsely. Anyway, thank you so very much to everybody who's already left a review. They really do actually help new people find the show, which is great. Also, artistic validation. Anyway, say, Phil, show me how you are pacing out your next mystery for Things from the Flood.
Oh, boy.
It's so cool.
Show me what you got, eh? Show me what you got. Show me what you got, eh? Show me what you got. Show me what you got. Show me what you got. Show me what you got.
This show is a joint production of She's a Super Geek and Misdirected Mark Productions, the media arm of Encoded Designs.
Show me what you got, eh? Show me what you got. Show me what you got, eh? Show me what you got. Show me what you got, eh? Show me what you got. Show me what you got, eh?
I have waveforms. Now it looks like an arrow today.
Well, an arrow is just not as exciting. I mean, the other thing about waveforms is like, if I don't make them the same like size on the screen, then I'll never see what you saw when you recorded it.
Uh-huh. I know. But it amused me last time because it just happened in real time. And then I was like, oh, and then I started laughing.
I know, your waveform made you blush.
It did.
It was pretty funny.
It's pretty funny. Oh, boy.
We should start the show.
Yeah.
No, we should
have another show that's called Popsplaining, where like basically each episode is like I pick a thing and just explain it to you. Like,
well,
like
so the only
tonight
thing is
we're
like
talking about blood sport. Like
that's it's funny for you and me, but like there's a lot of people who could misinterpret that.
I bet you people would take a bonus episode if we did a Popsplain.
Oh yeah, our listeners, yeah. I think there's an understanding.
Oh no, you're right.
Popsplaining
you are
is
correct.
not mansplaining, like right, but like because it's funny for all of us involved, it's intentional.
No, we'd have to set it up with you were in a cult. You missed part of
Right, like I actually don't know these things.
Right, and I'm gonna explain them to you.
And I'm saying, yes, please tell me.
I'm not trained in any of this, but I'm going to explain it to you.
You're going to explain it to me as you lived it.
Yes.
And then it will be like the telephone version of like all the pop culture that I missed. Bloop.
Okay,
yes.
Show? Do show?
Yeah, show. But, just to be clear,
yes.
I can talk about a lot of 90s anime, so...
yeah, way more than I could. I got like four 90s anime, like, I know. Vampire...
Samurai Champloo should probably be your next one.
I watched a little bit of that, actually, but no, I got like Vampire Hunter D, Fist of the North Star.
Makes sense. Sure.
Original Ghost in the Shell.
Right, of course.
Yeah. And a couple others. Oh, Project Echo. Project Echo is like one of my favorites.
Oh, there's another one that I'm thinking of that I can't remember the name of. It's a movie. It starts with an A, but it's not Echo. Anyway,
Akira.
And also Cowboy Bebop. Not actually Akira either, but have you seen Akira?
Oh yeah, I totally saw Akira.
Right.
A couple of times actually. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. If you'd like to do the show, press the button now.
Boo-doo-doot. Bloop.
There we go. It'd be like your dryer.
I know.
Your dryer sounds like an 80s arcade game.
I know.
Your dryer sounds like somebody's dropping quarters into an 80s arcade game.
Dee-dee-dee. Ready, player one. Boop. Boop.
That's right.
Bing.
Okay. You ready?
Well, yes. Meow. Ooh, simul meow.
Yeah. Okay.
How many meows?
No, just that's it. You go.
How many meows does it take to make a meowth? Bloop.
Do the show. Just do the show.
Okay. I forgot to go back up to the top of the show. I know. Don't whisper. It doesn't come through the bonus.
It's like amateur night here tonight.
Oh my God. Okay. Sorry. We're good. We're going. Bloop.
Boom. Boom. Oh,
you did the second. You did the second. Okay.
Who's Clues?
Blue's Clues.
Get out your notebooks.
I was trying so hard not to do that. Then you did it.
Ah, yes. Now, if people laugh at this in the outtakes, it'll be one of two things. Either you are young enough to have watched Blue's Clues and you're like, yay, Blue's Clues.
Yay, Blue's Clues.
Or you are a parent
Yes.
and watched Blue's Clues because your kids were watching Blue's Clues.
Uh-huh.
I fall into the parent part.
As do I.
Okay. But Schmitty might have actually seen.
Schmitty might have actually watched it. I don't know.
Correct. Okay. So anyway,
This one I think is really common.
Blue's
if you're
Clues?
Blue's Clues. I was saying a thing. Damn it.
Sorry.
It's like I just can't even stop myself. You say it and I say the thing. I interrupted myself. I don't know what I was saying.
Just take it right from the, so here's some tips.
Right. Bloop. Well, I enjoyed catching up on the 90s films. That was fun.
Oh, that was excellent. Our 90s teen rom-com exchange was an excellent endeavor. Anyway.
Yeah. No, I feel like 10 Things I Hate About You really holds up, actually.
I thought that was very good. And I Can't Hardly Wait was just as enjoyable.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. Okay, good. Bloop. You can find us in the...
Were you going to say the G Plus community? Were you going to say it? I'm telling Rob.
Oh my God, this is the second show in a row. I stopped myself.
You can find us on our MySpace. Check us out on our MySpace page.
In our live journal.
Check us out on GeoCities.
We have an Angel Fire site.
Oh yeah, we've got an AOL group. Take that.
Okay, so can we
We've
now
erected
finish?
a BBS. Like, if you'd like to go to our bulletin board, you can dial area code 716. No, okay.
Well, I mean, it's not that much better than that, right?
We just went backwards through time. Wasn't that awesome?
I know, but now I'm going to tell him about the forums, which is also like several steps backwards from G+.
That's true.
But it's like for reals.
It is real. That one's not fake.
It's true.
Go on, please go on.
I'm really excited to hear about it.
I mean, I did the what's going on here document. So
I know I'm really excited about it. I can't see anything about it because I suspect that people who play in that game also listen to this show.
they might indeed.
Yes.
Show me what you got. Show me what you got.
Show me what you got.
Show me
Show
what
me
you-
what you got. Show me what you got.
And 43 minutes. Not bad. We're getting much better at the 45.
terrible.
We're getting much better at the 45 mark. Plus, there's a lot of nonsense in this, though. So,
There's a lot of nonsense.
whose clues?
Blue's Clues.
Do you remember Blue's friend? Who's Blue's friend? Do you remember?
Oh, the pink one.
It's not pink.
I know.
Do you
I don't
remember her
remember their name. I just remember she's pink.
Magenta.
Oh, yeah. Magenta.
That's right. And so there's now a new host for the show. There's now like a third host, but
Oh, really?
yeah. So the first host was Steve, and then Steve goes off to college, and Joe takes over. And then now the new Blue's Clues host is what's his name? I'm looking. But Joe and Steve go on the show to to meet the new host.
Okay, that's cute.
So, oh man, I'm looking at all these characters from Blue's Clues.
No, we need to
Mailbox,
stop recording. We got to
Mr.
stop
Salt and Miss
recording.
Pepper. All right, say goodbye.
I know, but what about paprika?
Paprika and cinnamon. Paprika and cinnamon. Shovel and pail. Tickety tock.
Anyway.
Slippery soap.
We got to stop.
Okay, say goodbye.
We got to stop. Bye. Stop.